love it when Laurel makes the tea. Thank you, Laurel.
You're welcome.
So welcome to Sunday morning at Atlanta Soto Zen Center. This is July 7th, I believe. Hope everybody survived the Independence Day. And we have a special guest speaking today. Sensei Andrew Dietz is a longtime board member here. He's a creative consultant in the outside world. And he and I do several kinds of workshops together that feature meditation and activities, such as a writer's workshop where we meditate, write, and so forth. So Andrew's been central to our outreach program. And in introducing Zen to the American culture, I say, slightly different angle, slightly different way, very different, I guess, really, rather than as a religion competing with other religions or as a monastic discipline and so forth. It's more like the heart of creativity. It's more like he's come up with, he's a writer and very good with words, as you will see. Come up with provocation and pause as kind of the formula for how this works. Pause being the meditation, although provocative as well. And the other thing that I really like about Sensei means sounds of mountains, streams, valleys, right? Something like that, from Dogen's teaching. And Andrew has a great sense of humor, which may show up today. This may not. So with that, can you turn over to Casey?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Do you think Buddha had a laugh track? Do you think when he spoke, he had it? Do you think he laughed? Did the Buddha laugh? Did the Buddha laugh?
They were all chortling internal.
I certainly hope so.
He seemed so serious, and his subject was suffering, right? How funny is that? But of course, we could also be talking about a different Buddha, Hote or Hutai, or there was another name, I think, as well, the fat, jolly Buddha. For sure, he laughed. He was called the Laughing Buddha, right? So laughter frees the mind from judgment, from limited thinking, from the boundaries of what's been done or thought before. So laughter is a path to, it's a gateway to moments of awakening. That's my thesis. And laughter and absurdity kind of live side by side. Humor often comes from the misdirect, going down one path in a conversation, and all of a sudden it takes a sharp, lateral turn, a surprise that kind of tickles you. One of what I think is a contemporary sacred text is Crazy Wisdom by Wes Nisker, who I believe passed away not that long ago, which isn't funny, but he was hilarious and he was brilliant.
It might be funny to him.
It might be funny to him, actually. And his book starts off with a quote from Chuang Tzu, the Taoist master. I pronounce it right?
Yes.
Where can I find a man who has forgotten words? I'd like to have a word with him. He says, crazy wisdom is the wisdom of the saint, the Zen master, the poet, the mad scientist, and the fool. Crazy wisdom sees that we live in a world of many illusions, that the emperor has no clothes, that much of human belief and behavior is ritualized nonsense. Crazy wisdom understands antimatter and old Sufi poetry, loves paradox and puns and pie fights and laughing at politicians. Crazy wisdom flips the world upside down and backward until everything becomes perfectly clear. So crazy wisdom is the wisdom of laughter. It's the wisdom of holy fools. Holy fools and crazy wise teachers wake us up with humor. and absurdity and non sequitur and pies in the face. If the irrational mind is what trips us up, why not try the irrational mind? So the crazy wise fool is someone not caught up in his or her own rational mind. The fool is meant as a compliment. The fool is just present enough to skillfully snap us all awake. So this came about, this conversation, because well, there was a different conversation that I thought was interesting. There are two monks, you may know this story, right? Two monks looking at a flag. One says, the flag is flapping. The other one says, what?
There is no flag.
The wind is flapping, although there is no flag would be equally good, right? Second one, first one says, the flag is flapping. The second one says, the wind is flapping. The Zen master comes up and says, your minds are flapping. Then the fool comes up and says, I think he was a southern fool named Baba, y'all's mouths are flapping. So in Zen, a fool is holy, a beginner, an empty mind. So let's flap our mouths like fools for a while. Let's repeat the four great vows, the Bodhisattva vows, which and then we'll see if they're foolish. Absurd as they sound. Repeat after me. We'll just do it once because we'll do it at the end anyway, right? Officially. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Desires are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Now let's do the four greatly absurd vows. Repeat after me. Beings are numberless. I vow to letter them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to rest them. Dharma gates are boundless, and they squeak. I vow to oil them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to surrealize it. So is the second version really any more absurd or foolish than the first? Beings are numberless. They're never ending. They're infinite. I vow to free them. Really? How's that going to happen? If they're numberless, they're infinite. If they're infinite and you are not, how can you free them all? That's foolish, right? The vows are absurd. But just because they're absurd doesn't mean we shouldn't take them seriously. Right? The funniest humor usually has a serious edge to it, doesn't it? If we're not separate from others, if we experience ourselves or others inside ourselves, right? You see me, but where do you see me? You see me in here, right? So infinite beings are within us, within ourselves. If we free ourselves, maybe we do free others, all others. Don't know. But it's worth thinking seriously about what may otherwise seem absurd. So the vows are serious, but just because something is serious doesn't mean we shouldn't recognize its absurdity. The other way around, right? So delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Delusions are inexhaustible. They won't. Our duality, our sense of duality, our confusion doesn't go away. But wait a second. Isn't that statement dualistic? Delusions are inexhaustible. To have something be a delusion means something else is clear and truth, right? Is it dualistic to separate true and false? Am I going to end duality by starting off by buying into a dualistic statement? Or is that also an absurdity? So the vows are impossible, it seems. But just because something's impossible doesn't mean we can't aim for it, right? Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Well, maybe we can't enter all of something that's endless. But the aspiration to keep going, no matter what, is an intention that pulls us forward, pulls us to the cushion, pulls us in the direction of awakening and Buddhahood. So to vow is to promise to make an effort. Just because we make an effort doesn't mean we have to try. What? Another great book, I didn't bring it, but there's a relatively new book out called Trying Without Trying about Wu Wei. We have a Taoist master here, so tell us what Wu Wei is. David, what's Wu Wei?
No, I don't know.
That's the right answer.
No, it's a concept of just surrendering to the flows that are out in that we're subject to, and just allowing things to arise as they arise, not fighting them. I think it's probably decent.
Doesn't necessarily mean no intentions. Intentions alone point us in the right direction. If we vow, we trust ourselves, in a sense, to the flow, to the river, and let the meander and the motion take us forward. To vow the impossible is to commit ourselves to failure. Right? So I think a lot of people, I know I did when I came at first and heard those vows, I'm like, I can't vow to that. No way can I keep that vow. That's crazy. Why are we saying this? But just because we fail or appear to fail doesn't mean the vows aren't skillfully effective. Skillful means like crazy wisdom. Right? The vows represent an endless Sisyphean path. Sisyphus, the dude that kept pushing the boulder up the hill till then it rolled down every time he pushed back. He was cursed by Zeus or somebody like that. Anybody know the mythology? How come he had to keep pushing it?
How did he get out of the way?
I don't know. He might have gotten run over by it every time. I don't know. Like a cartoon, he was flattened down and boing. See if I can boing. Like he popped back up.
Might get some.
He went down the other side.
Oh, he had a run. Oh,
I think it
yeah,
was
that could be.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
I
I
had to go
remember
chase
Huh.
seeing a diagram of it.
Really? Okay. Somebody took it really seriously. They diagrammed it out. That makes sense, though. It does make sense.
Those Greeks are all.
So the vows represent this endless path, but just because the path is endless doesn't mean that every step doesn't matter. So in this absurdity, there's a lot of nourishment in those four vows, isn't there? We continually define and redefine them as we renew our intention to fulfill them. I want to open it up in a minute, but I just want to read a couple of other pieces that others have written or others have sort of expressed. Right? Absurdus, Camus. Anybody read Camus? Stranger, mandatory high school reading? No? Anybody not go to high school?
Almost. I went to high school in Utah.
Yeah, okay, so not really.
Sorry.
So Camus believed that life was absurd, right? Defying logical explanation, irrational. And he said, when you have once seen the glow of happiness on the face of a beloved person, you know that a man can have no vocation but to awaken that light on the faces surrounding him. In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. So even in the sort of bleakness of absurdity, alleged bleakness of absurdity, or nothingness, here this philosopher, this poster child for absurdity, for nothingness, seems to be taking a bodhisattva vow to save all beings. When you have once seen the glow of happiness, you know that a man can have no vocation but to awaken that light on the faces surrounding him. Found that pretty encouraging. And, part of our lineage is the Okamura lineage, and Shohaku Okamura Roshi wrote a piece called Promising to Do the Impossible. We vow to do things that are impossible. This means that our practice is endless and that we cannot completely fulfill the four vows. Our practice and study are like trying to empty the ocean with a spoon. one spoonful at a time. It is certainly a stupid way of life, not a clever one. A clever person cannot be a bodhisattva. We are aiming at something eternal, infinite, and absolute. No matter how hard we practice, study, and help other people, there's no end to it all. When we understand that our goal is eternal, infinite, and absolute, no matter how hard we practice, no matter how many things we master, no matter how deep our understanding of Buddha's teaching, compared to the infinite, we are zero. We cannot afford to be arrogant. I think that's interesting, isn't it? Another purpose of this vow is to remind us of our
Humility.
our humility, right? And maybe another way to help us be comfortable with our imperfection and recognize maybe the perfection in it, if that isn't too twisted. And what's the other term? Not wu wei, but not feng shui. Not, that's something else completely. But wabi sabi, that's the one where there's perfection and imperfection. So humor runs through Zen. It may be one of the funniest religions there is, or practices. One of the things that connected me when I walked in these doors was Sensei's lightheartedness, his, like as they say, takes practice seriously, but not himself. And that was welcoming and warm to me. There are plenty of books, if you look, that reflect this humor. I just took a second before walking in, here's Penetrating Laughter, Hakuin Zen and Art. And to sort of circle back to the beginning to Hote, there are at least one, maybe multiple paintings or drawings that he did of himself, where he makes himself look like Hote with the big belly and the smile. You might want to take a look at this. And this book, Crazy Wisdom, is in the library as well, and it goes well beyond Zen to all faiths, and beyond faiths to art, and poetry, etc. Other things that lighten us up and let us step through the doorway and arrest us for a moment, stop us. When we laugh, there's a moment where our mind stops and possibility is available. So thank you for your attention. I just hope to give you something to chew on, but in case that wasn't enough, I want you to pass these out and you can chew on these and just let all this shit drop. I am dosing everybody. Yes, I am.
Now, do you have one?
I have one, yeah.
You go first.
It's not that kind of tablet. Although it does have a pretty psychedelic cover. Well, Laurel, tell them what it is and what it says.
It says, let that shit go.
And what's it a picture of?
The Buddha.
It's the Buddha. Let that shit go, and it's chewing gum, so you can chew on that for a while.
Little box of mind.
I appreciate that.
Little box of mindfulness.
A little box of mindfulness, right? So let's open it up to your thoughts and non-thoughts. I wonder, just for starters, if you've had that reaction about the vows, the 4 vows that we'll wrap this up within a minute.
I already let my.
Maybe we can just go down the line and ask.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, just one. I just open up to any thoughts. What does this bring up for you, if anything?
Well, I think that one of the things that is most interesting about the 4 vows is there's only one of the 4 that's even possible. The other 3 are just complete and utter impossibilities. All you can do is enter the Dharma gates. You can do that. The other 3, hopeless.
It depends on where freedom lies, what you mean by freedom. And how literally you mean that, or how personally you mean it, what that actually is.
Yes.
The Dharma Sutra, Subhuti, Subhuti, a bodhisattva sees beings to be saved. If truly a bodhisattva, he would not see beings that needed saving.
So,
in other words, the dichotomy is in us, it's in the language, it's not in the truth. So freeing all beings, where do you start? How long is it going to take? How many are there? But like the Gordian knot, they're freed with one stroke.
I didn't quite understand, and I understood what you said, but I didn't quite, there was a piece that Huining wrote in the Platform Sutra. He talks about the 4 vows, and he says something like, everybody frees themselves. That idea of, or maybe it has to do with that idea of our ability. It's innate in us that we can, with one stroke, free ourselves.
What is binding everybody, according to this? You see everybody as needing to be freed. And further, if you see yourself as the one who's going to do that for them, I think you're misunderstanding the syntax.
Seems a savior and a savee, and that's realistic.
So what are we asking people? What are we freeing people from?
Buddha was said to be simultaneously enlightened with all beings. There's no separate. You don't get enlightened. without everything being.
Isn't this a commitment to uphold the 4 noble truths, or to recognize, pursue?
The absurdity, the lack of logic is in our minds. It's not in what's being said.
I vow to free all other beings from my bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, that we could do.
Good luck.
Possibly. Maybe not. Never mind. Terry?
See, what do you think of this? So that journey of 1,000 steps, begins with the first one, or the journey of unfathomable miles begins right here with this step. So in the same way that this is in the context of like stillness or zazen, is that so just this, so beings are numberless, I vow to free them, but it's just this being who's in the form of consciousness to be saved, or this Dharma gate that's present now is to be entered. So the aspiration is all inclusive, but
Yes.
it's just that
The action
that
is
first
immediate.
step, this step right here is the one that we can deal with.
Yeah.
That's kind of doable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to start calling people out?
Just what's happening now.
So I'm still wrestling with what Terry just said. So the statements are the journey. That bigger aspiration is the longer journey. But what we can focus on is the first step.
What's
Which
happening?
starts here.
What's happening now?
Yeah. Good. Anything?
Well, it just occurred to me that the vows in a way are very ambitious, and the absurdity of them cuts through ambition, which is one of the biggest obstacles on the spiritual path.
How does it cut through?
Because you wish to do all these things, but it's impossible to do it, so it's absurd. So your ambition is not relevant. If it is, it's only going to become frustrating.
Because that ambition is attachment.
Mm-hmm. Attachment to outcome.
How would you know when you were done? I mean, how would you know they were all?
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. You just keep practicing. There is no done. There's only path.
I was reading Rev Anderson, and he was talking about, it has to do with vows. And the first one, beings and elements, I vow to freedom. And he was saying, that has to do with a vow of serving others, that vow. So maybe it goes along with what Terry was saying, that first step is, or in the moment that, it's probably unfulfillable, so to speak, but what can I do in this moment? It's just to serve others. So I think it just kind of points us maybe in the current moment to what we can do or what we should be doing. Not so much will I accomplish it or not, but what should I be doing at this moment? So I guess that probably ties into what Terry was saying.
I know this is new for you. Thoughts?
I was just thinking about how often it is that Zen tries to knock you out of the way that you're, the way that you expect everyone to behave. I was reading 101 Zen stories this morning, and I came across that one. There's a Zen monk who's been living with this woman who's been taking care of him for years and years and years. And she's like, she wants to know what he's learned. And so she goes to a girl and says, embrace the monk that I've been taking care of. And then ask him, well, what now? And she does so. And the monk says, a tree grows on a cold rock, or something along those lines. And the woman is so angry that she burns his house down. And there are so many stories like that are like, it's like you're not using the teaching when you say something like that.
That's it. Labor.
That's it that you've come to. Yeah. You're not going to return this compassion that she's showing you and any of these other things. So she just burns his house down. But just using that gap, creating that gap, like building up the story. It's a short little story, and then just bam, the whole thing is. That's not the point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think absurdity is a really useful tool.
Yeah, it's a gap creator.
Yeah.
Annie?
I mean, well, like the more I meditate and the more I study Buddhism and stuff, I kind of just like the less I know. So I don't even really know what those vows mean. So I don't really have anything to say about it.
You know what? As I sit here and listen to you guys, I realize, I came here with something that I don't really know about. And I guess part of my wanting to talk about it is to get some help and understanding. So you're not alone. Starting right here. Laurel, did you have something?
I was just going to say that, it's kind of like, do you retire if you enjoy your work?
Mm-hmm.
There's no retirement because you just do it. It's not work if you enjoy what you're doing to either have income or sustain life.
Well,
So,
it is and it isn't. Yeah.
Sure, but if you get up every day enjoying what you're doing, it's not work as we know it. Because work is something that, I gotta go to work. Or if it's what you do, that's what you do. And I think the whole point of the Zen stories and everything is to show that it's never finished. There is no end point. It has to be forever because everybody's deluded. Even if you think you're not deluded, you're deluded thinking you're not deluded. Deluded? Or is that the word? Yeah.
Not diluted.
I'd say
Diluted. Although maybe
I
both.
use that word wrong. But I mean, that's what I get out of it.
Yeah, it is Sisyphusian. Say that 5 times fast. The idea of stepping off the 100-foot pole. We don't step off it once. Every moment we reappear and have to step off again. sort of what it's like. Seems. Mike, anything else?
Yeah, I think when I think about the Holy Fool, I think that the best modern example of the Holy Fool I can think of is the Big Lebowski.
Mm-hmm.
And you had two characters with the exact same name, and one's kind of motto was achieve, and the other one's motto was abide. And you kind of see them, you realize they're diametrically opposed. These two people couldn't be more different. And you kind of get this peek behind the curtain about 3/4 of the way through the film that, the guy that claimed the achievement, that none of the achievements were real. The money was somebody else's.
Mm.
Yeah, we let him run the little urban achievers, but that's about all he was capable of. Yeah, and that so the kind of the real trick is the abide. And that's probably how Sisyphus got through it.
Yeah.
He just abided. It's a rock. What else have I got to do all day?
Maybe he laughed every time it went back down. There it goes again. That's hilarious.
Maybe
It works every time.
That joke never stops getting.
Yeah, or maybe it was like what Laurel just mentioned ago. Maybe he really loved that rock.
Thank heaven
Maybe he
something.
wasn't retired.
Yeah.
He never retired.
Maybe thank heaven something's consistent.
Yeah,
Something's consistent. I abide because
That's true.
I get to do it again.
Thank God. What in our life
Oh,
is
goody.
consistent?
Sisyphus it may not have been a have to. It may have been a get to.
Well, isn't there a story or something like some monk was sweeping the garden and he swept it all nice and tidy. It was clean, and the abbot went over and shook the tree and the monk that swept it said, "Now it's perfect." And the abbot went over and shook the tree with the blooms on it, and it made blooms everywhere. And he goes, "Now it's perfect."
No.
And he goes, "Oh, good." Oh, no, there's another story that, "Oh, good, I get to sweep this again."
Mm.
Something.
There was one like that where the old man was sweeping the sidewalk and some young man said, "It's hot, isn't there why are you still out here sweeping the sidewalk at your advanced age? I thought somebody can do that." His answer was, "Here comes another."
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Wile E. Coyote.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He could walk on air till he realized he was walking on air, and then, oh my God, that's Zen. I think I got it. Ah, shit.
Mm-hmm.
There is in the Russian Orthodox tradition, the crazy fool,
Mm-hmm.
the divine fool, which is again the same mirroring of the fool, the crazy religious, spiritually enlightened fool. The last thing that comes to mind is not Sisyphus, but there's a kind of an even darker Greek one, which is Tantalus, which was the guy was starving and thirsty, and every time he reached up for a fruit, it would pull out of the way and the water would rise up to him. Every time he leaned down to drink, the water would drain away and the fruit would come down. Tantalus, to me, that could be worse.
Mm-hmm.
Hence tantalized.
Reminds me of stuff I used to do to my sister growing up, but maybe that's too much
Are
information.
you from West Virginia?
No. Never mind.
Yeah.
Anything?
Like the more I think about it, or the more I say about it, the further away I get from it. And when you said it, like it's like by engaging with it, I can't get it. And like if I were to say anything about it, what else? I could cut through each delusion one by one, for each person one by one, but enter each gate one by one, but like drop it all and it's done. And then who is deluded? Who is ranked individuals? Who is entering the gates? Like it's all nothing.
Sensei's comment about us getting stuck in words resonates, and it may be a useful exercise after this to, if you haven't already done this for yourself, is to spend some time with the words in this, and especially words like free. I vow to free them. What does free mean? I vow to enter. What is entering? what is realizing? Again, not necessarily answers, except that we are stuck in our definitions, and if we can loosen the binds of definitions, then we may be able to see things a little differently. I don't know that that means awakening, but it may be a different perspective that can be useful. David?
The only thing I can probably say that would detract from the conversation is my favorite Zen joke. Is that Zen or is it just boring?
Wow, that's really long.
Whoa.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that was that. Anyway, anything else to add?
I guess just kind of stepping back a little bit at laughter as a topic in general, I like that you chose, because to me, laughter just, I mean, you can anthropologically think about it or whatever, but laughter just doesn't make any sense. Like if I'm at work or whatever and someone says like that same old joke they say every day, I just, ha ha, there's no logical reason for it. And I guess that's what Zen like sort of goes and directs itself towards, like the areas that I cannot put into words and that make absolutely no sense. And my favorite stand-up comedian of all time is Stephen Wright. And just his one-liner, just absolute absurdity in that level. That joke he has, kind of like Tantalus, where he has like a thing of soup on the table and he left the keys underneath the ring of the table. And what do? Do I pull the key and spill the soup or something like that? And he doesn't. It just throws the thing. It's that whole just logic makes no sense. I don't know. I love laughter. To me, is Zen, I guess, because it just doesn't make any sense.
I don't know about you guys. I can't live without it. And I'm pretty sure there has got to be at least one Stephen Wright reference in this crazy wisdom book. They don't make it easy to find, but surely it's in there. Well, should we say the closing verse, the four vows, the regular way? You want to bring us in?
Yeah, we didn't do the opening version,
Should we do the opening verse?
Yeah.
So close with the opening?
with nothing in between.
So it's open and then close, right?
Okay,
So 3 bells.
that works. Yeah.
Even
Past and profound wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now I can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. The Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
See y'all soon.